In the world of tech, progress usually feels like this constant climb, right? More features, faster speeds, higher scores.
hmm
But what if? What if a drop in a key metric, something going down, actually signals a huge leap forward?
hmm
Could less mature AI, counterintuitively, actually be a really good sign for the industry? Today, we're doing a deep dive into what some are calling the Agentic AI Reset.
hmm
We're looking at source material that challenges our basic assumptions about AI maturity. And we'll get into what top tech leaders, the real pioneers, are actually focusing on behind the scenes right now.
Yeah, that's exactly the plan for this deep dive.
Hmm.
We're going to unpack why this recent drop in AI maturity scores, which sounds negative, is actually being seen as good news. We'll clarify what agentic AI really is compared to, say, generative AI, and then really dig into the concrete strategies organizations are using now to move past just pilots, into real production grade stuff. The goal is to give you those key nuggets of knowledge to understand this really crucial shift that's happening.
Okay, so let's start with the data that kind of makes you tilt your head a bit. ServiceNow's second annual AI Maturity Index, they surveyed, over 4,500 leaders globally,
Yeah.
private sector, public sector. And here's the kicker. The average AI maturity score actually dropped this year from 44 down to 35 out of 100, and maybe even more surprising, less than 1% of these leaders scored over 50. That really sounds like bad news at first glance, doesn't it?
It does, but the fascinating part is why this drop is seen positively. People are framing it as a necessary, almost healthy reset of expectations around agentic AI. You see, the initial hype was huge, organizations jumped in maybe a bit too fast, and they quickly realized just how much they didn't know about actually deploying agentic AI effectively in a meaningful way. So this lower score, it isn't really failure, it's more like a crucial recalibration. It's forcing everyone to get real about the complexity involved. Beyond the buzzwords, it's a dose of realism, you could say.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like you thought you had the map, but realized it was missing some pretty big mountains, and now you're redrawing it more accurately. Okay, but help us distinguish this clearly. For leaders who've maybe already invested in generative AI, what's the real difference here? Is agentic AI totally different, or just an evolution? How do we separate them cleanly? Well, our sources draw a pretty clear line. Generative AI, or Gen AI, that could be like a standalone tool, right? Or something just bolted onto an existing system. Think of a chatbot that's great at answering questions or writing text. Its main job is creating or responding.
Exactly, and connecting that to the bigger picture, agentic AI, well, it demands far deeper integration to really shine. It's not just about asking or creating, it's about doing. Autonomously executing tasks, orchestrating complex workflows that weave right into the core of the business. We're talking CRM, supply chain, ERP, HR, finance, the fundamental stuff. And
Yeah.
when you factor in the sheer speed of tech changes, existing silos, old legacy systems, plus hundreds of potential new agentic AI use cases popping up, it all means organizations really have to, well, up their game significantly. It's not just integration, it's orchestration, it's governance, keeping humans in the loop where needed, and crucially moving beyond pilots to real production-ready systems.
Okay, so this reset is forcing a deeper, more realistic look. What does that translate to in practice for the CIOs, the tech leaders actually dealing with this? What are they doing differently now? We've identified four key approaches they seem to be taking based on our sources.
Right. The first big one, and it's critical, is getting much better at dealing with and managing exceptions. Historically, older automation tech, things like RPA or robotic process automation, the stuff focused on very strict rules-based tasks, they often just fell over when something didn't fit the script. If a process went off the rails, they struggled. And this is exactly where agentic AI shows its strength. It's actually quite good at handling these deviations. Dan Priest, he's the CAIO at PwC points this out. He says AI agents are, and I quote, quite good at dealing with complexity, including exception handling, due in part to their ability to bring the insights of how similar exceptions were resolved into real-time scenarios. They learn from the past, you see.
And there's solid evidence for that, right? PwC's recent AI agent survey found was 83% of execs said these agents were helping solve business problems faster and more effectively. So like a concrete example, maybe in supply chain, an agent isn't just watching inventory levels. It sees an anomaly, maybe a delay, and it can autonomously trigger a reorder or even find an alternative supplier. That avoids a human bottleneck, speeds things up dramatically. That feels like a real operational shift.
Absolutely. And once they get a handle on exceptions, the next logical step seems to be pursuing a multi-agent strategy. Research from EDB shows the most successful large companies aren't just tinkering with one or two agents. No, they're deploying 10 or more agentic agents, plus business-specific Gen AI apps. It's about scale. And the scope is really interesting too. They're pushing agentic AI way beyond just customer support. We're seeing it in supply chain optimization, marketing content generation, broad automation, even complex digital twins. Nancy Hensley, the CPO at EDB, she notes these leading groups do twice as much as all the other groups because they recognize there's an ROI cap in each business application, so they do as much as possible. They're spreading the value across the organization.
And what really stands out with this multi-agent approach is how it seems tied to responsible AI from the get-go. It's not just throwing more agents out there. It's about having strong guardrails, right? And really preparing the human teams to work alongside these agents, fostering partnerships where humans do what they do best, AI does what it does best, and they kind of evolve together.
Yeah.
It feels like a much more thoughtful integration.
But scaling that effectively across a whole enterprise,
Hmm.
how do you manage it? That leads directly to the third key approach, fundamentally rethinking the underlying architecture. What we're seeing is CIOs adopting a kind of hybrid strategy. They're using AI agents from their big existing vendors, think ERP, CRM systems, because those are often natively integrated, easier to roll out. But, and this is key, they're also bringing in purpose-built specialized agents from outside vendors for the really complex or niche tasks.
Yeah.
Best of both worlds.
As you get more and more agents from different places, these orchestration platforms must become crucial. Right?
Yeah.
You need something to conduct the whole orchestra, make sure everything works together smoothly.
Absolutely vital. And there's another concept gaining a lot of steam here, sovereign data and AI platforms. This basically means companies building and controlling their own secure AI infrastructure, not relying entirely on third parties. Hensley from EDB actually points out that this was the, quote, #1 predictor of success for the top performers in their research. Having that sovereign platform gives them security, control, and the foundation for really expansive AI delivery.
Okay, so we've got exception handling, multi-agent strategies, rethinking architecture. The fourth and final approach we're seeing from these leaders is a really deliberate refocus on innovation. This seems critical. It's about moving beyond just making things faster or cheaper. The top organizations, they're setting ambitious strategic goals, measurable stuff that actually gets reported up to the board.
Exactly. It's a major strategic pivot. Priest from PwC puts it simply, leaders are refocusing on innovation. They're asking the big questions now. Where can we combine our unique strengths, our differentiators, with AI to create entirely new sources of advantage in the market? It's not just optimization anymore, it's about invention.
That's quite a statement, though, that efficiency gains are becoming table stakes. For many companies still just getting started, wouldn't those immediate ROI wins from efficiency still be the main focus? Are the sources universally saying innovation is the only game now, or is there still room for that efficiency focus?
It's a fair point. The sources do strongly suggest a consensus is forming. While efficiency absolutely delivers value and it's necessary, it's increasingly seen as just the baseline, the cost of entry almost. The real competitive edge, the new game everyone's chasing, seems to be about using AI to create those genuinely new market advantages, new ways of delivering value.
Right. So wrapping up the core idea of this reset. All the time and effort going into these approaches, better exception handling, smart multi-agent deployment with responsibility, rethinking the architecture, owning the platform, that strategic focus on innovation, that's what will actually drive organizations forward in AI maturity now. It's about building a solid, lasting foundation for real transformation, not just grabbing the low-hanging fruit.
Precisely. And that leads us to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to really chew on. If this deep, integrated agentic AI truly is becoming the new standard for competitive advantage for how successful organizations operate, what does that really mean for the definition of business as usual in the next few years? How will our day-to-day work actually change when AI isn't just an assistant, but it's actively orchestrating and executing core business processes, when it becomes part of the company's central nervous system, essentially? Definitely something to consider as we all navigate what's coming.